One of the most powerful spiritual centers of Hinduism in Bharat is Puri, one of the sacred Moksha Puris. Many of us grown up hearing about this divine mystery, the Brahma Padartha, the enigmatic essence preserved deep in the core of Sri Jagannath Murti. There are countless stories surrounding this sacred core, whispered legends, guarded rituals, and deep symbolism. But this video is not about debunking or exposing or myth busting. That is not my intent. This is about something far more important, that is to develop a perspective that every practicing Hindu, especially the younger generations, must begin to understand and carry forward. A perspective of reverence, curiosity, and cultural responsibility. For the benefit of everyone, let's do this for starters. Now, first of all, what is Brahma Padartha? It is believed to be the sacred spiritual core hidden inside the murtis of Lord Jagannath, Balabhadra, Subhadra, and Sudarshana in the Garbhagriha of Puri. This enigmatic thing called Brahma Padartha is stored inside the murtis or the idols of Jagannath Puri. Now, what's the meaning of Brahma Padartha? The word is a Sanskritam word. Brahma means the supreme consciousness and Padartha means substance. So Brahma Padartha essentially means the essence of the supreme, the soul-like core believed to be make the murtis divine beyond their physical form. Now, coming to the well-known rituals and traditions. Every 12 years, during the sacred ritual called Navakaleba Yatra, the wooden idols of the Jagannath Puri are replaced. But the Brahma Padartha is carefully transferred from the old idols to the new ones, symbolizing the death and rebirth of the deity without losing the original spiritual essence. Lastly, and most central to our current topic, it's secrecy and sanctity. This transfer is done in an extreme secrecy. Only a select group of the temple priests known as Daitapatis are allowed to handle it, and even they must be blindfolded, ritually purified, and sworn to silence. To this day, no one knows exactly what the Brahma Padartha looks like. The contents of Brahma Padartha, its nature, and everything about it remain a very secretly guarded aspect about Jagannath Puri. So any video that you saw till now about Brahma Padartha claiming it to be this or that is fundamentally factual and incorrect, and even in this video I'm not going to say what it is because I don't know, nobody knows it. So when there is such kind of a divinely guarded secret, naturally the curiosity, creativity and conspiracy sets in public. And one such claim about Brahma Padartha is that it's the living heart, the biological heart of Bhagwan Sri Krishna, which was never cremated but was preserved in this wooden murti of Jagannath. While at the outset it definitely appears like a baseless claim, let's go a bit deep into it. Adikavi Sri Saraladas, an Odia poet who authored or rather translated Mahabharatam from Sanskritam to Odia in 15th century. That is where this claim of Krishna's heart still preserved in the murti of Lord Jagannath comes from. Basically, this epic, the Odia Mahabharatam, written by Adikavi Sri Saraladas, it blends both the epic grandeur of Mahabharatam with the folk realism of, or rather the traditions of, the local Odia people. And it carries a very clear and a moral and devotional tone, highlighting dharma, bhakti and social values. Now, by no means here we are fact-checking the great epic written by Sri Saraladas. For the times some 500 years ago, people needed these kinds of narratives to propagate the knowledge which was just written in palm leaves. So when you bring in these kinds of emotional, devotional stories, facts may go other way, but the truth of Lord Jagannath and binding people around Lord Jagannath, that's the most important thing and is very well achieved by this great epic written by Sri Adikavi Saraladas. So bottom line is, in the translation of Mahabharatam, Adikavi Saraladas writes that at the end of Krishna Avatar, when the biological body of Bhagwan Sri Krishna is cremated, his entire body was cremated or burned in fire except his heart. So his heart was biologically indestructible and that was preserved in the murti of Jagannath, which is obviously not in line with the actual Mahabharatam written by Vedavyas Maharshi. As you can see here, I just gave few snippets about that parvam or that part of Mahabharatam where Bhagwan Sri Krishna is finally cremated. Now, his biological body is properly and normally and with all respects cremated by Arjuna, accompanied by few of his wives doing Sahagamanam or Sati Sahagamanam along with the body of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And some of his wives turned as ascetics and went into the jungle to live the life of an ascetic. Now, this episode, when it was translated or transliterated into Odia by Saraladas, since it's a very emotional moment that the death and cremation of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, it's naturally not a palatable one, right? So to really hold that reminiscence or relics of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, this entire heart narrative was created in Odia Mahabharatam, a kind of a crossover cum spin-off of Mahabharatam to the traditions of Jagannath Puri and the Brahma Padartha. And this entire narrative of Krishna's heart preserved in the Jagannath Puri statue is not just a linear narrative that came out of Odia Mahabharatam. There are layers to this narrative. Another spin-off is the Purushottama Kshetra Mahatmyam, part of Skanda Puranam, written by Vedavyasa Maharshi. The actual name of Puri is Purushottama Kshetram, and the shloka goes like this, introducing the place of Puri in Skanda Puranam. It says that the sacred Purushottama Kshetra is renowned as a profoundly sanctifying Tirtha, for it is there that the Lord of Shri, which is Jagannath, dwells in the form of a wooden idol, manifesting his divine presence but like a human being. Here, two important operative words. One is the wooden idol. So the tradition of Jagannath, most of us might not be aware of it, but the tradition of Jagannath predates Bhagavan Sri Krishna. It has been there even before the Krishna avatar also. Back then it was called as Neela Madhava. And then the second operative word is human being. Why is the metaphor given to Bhagwan as human being here? Because this tradition of Navakarlebara, that is replacing the wooden idols every 12 years. In fact, everything that is followed in Puri temple today comes from Skanda Puranam. So this is the oldest and most authentic source of information about Puri, that is Skanda Puranam. So now getting to the crux of the entire narrative about Bhagavan Sri Krishna's heart in Puri Jagannath. These three lines is the origin of this misunderstanding. Vishnoho kalevare tasmin kshetre purushottame antarvedi mahapunya vishnor hrudaya sannibha tasyaha samrakshanayaham sthapite vishnunashtada. We'll get to the translation in a minute, but just observe the words that I highlighted in white. Vishnoho kalevare, which means the body of Vishnu. The second word is Sri Purushottame, which is Sri Purushottama Kshetra, means Puri in short. So the body of Vishnu in Purushottama Kshetra. And the second line you see, Vishnur Hrudaya Sannibha, the heart of Vishnu. So the biological body of Vishnu, we're talking about Puri, and then we're talking about the heart of Vishnu. It is very relatable or reinforcing the narrative given by Saraladas that at the end of Krishna avatar, the heart of Krishna or Vishnu is preserved in the Jagannath Puri. So this slokam is basically misunderstood. The words of Mahadev while he was speaking these as part of Skanda Puranam means something else. We'll see what it exactly means. Lord Shiva narrating the greatness and sanctity of the place called Purushottama Kshetra or Puri. He says that the entire Purushottama Kshetra is like the body of Vishnu. Vishnoho kalevare tasmin kshetre purushottame. This entire region, it's not just the temple, but the entire region of Puri is like the body of Vishnu. And then in the second line, Antarvedi Mahapunya Vishnor Hrudaya Sannibhaha. Shiva says that the Antarvedi, that means the innermost altar or the Vedika on which Jagannath Puri is consecrated. That region, Vishnor Hrudaya Sannibhaha, it is like Vishnu's heart. Vishnu, which is Vishnu's, Hridaya means heart, Sannibha means resembling. So metaphorically, the entire region of Puri is like the biological body of Sri Mahavishnu, and the Antarvedi, which is the Garbhagriha of the Puri temple, is like the heart of Vishnu. That is what he is referring to. And this Vishnur Hrudaya Sannibha and the Odia Mahabharatam written by Saraladas, both were fused to create this new narrative that Bhagavan Sri Krishna's heart is preserved in Jagannath Puri, which is fundamentally and factually and scripturally incorrect. And the third line is most important, which we often tend to ignore. But that's where a very important clue lies. Tasyaha samrakshanayaham sthapite vishnunashtada. Shiva says that to protect this Purushottama Kshetra, Sri Mahavishnu consecrated Shiva in 8 forms around this temple. Now, to the best of my knowledge, I am not aware. Next time when I am blessed enough to go to Puri, I would definitely look out for this one. There are 8 murtis of Shiva around the temple guarding the Garbhagriha of Puri. That's what this line says. Now, recently I saw that a new kind of a conspiracy or an offshoot of this is also getting popular, especially in the Telugu regions, that it is a Nrsimha Saligramam that is consecrated in the heart of Jagannath Puri. That is also incorrect. And in fact, people are quoting the same lines to justify that. But unfortunately, if you read the full story, it's totally different. I'll switch to Telugu for a minute. Chala mandi పేర్లు అనవసరం మనకి, కానీ ఒక ఆయన అది నృసింహ శాలిగ్రామం అని, నరసింహస్వామి 8 రూపాల్లో బ్రహ్మ పదార్థం చుట్టూ కాపలా ఉన్నాడని, అదంతా కూడా తప్పండి. స్కాంద పురాణం తెరిచి చూస్తే కనుక సాక్షాత్తు ఈశ్వరుడు చెప్తాడు, 8 రూపాల్లో నన్ను విష్ణువే ప్రతిష్ఠించాడు ఈ క్షేత్రానికి కాపలా కాయమని. బ్రహ్మ పదార్థం అనేది ఏంటో ఎవ్వరికీ తెలియదు. నో బడీ నోస్ వాట్ ఇస్ ద ట్రూత్ అబౌట్ బ్రహ్మ పదార్థం. Bottom line is that, and that's all. So now, what is the most authentic source to know about Brahma Padartham? It is the Temple Chronicles of Jagannath Puri, the Madala Panji. Madala Panji is the official record of Sri Jagannath Temple, maintained continuously since the 12th century CE. It documents a vast timeline of royal deeds, temple rituals, and historical events over the last 800 years. And it is within this sacred chronicle, the Madala Panji, that we find the only documented references to Brahma Padartha. Not as a myth, not as a hearsay, but as a ritual fact. So now let us briefly try to understand what can we extract as a knowledge about Brahma Padartham directly from Madala Panji. According to the Madala Panji, one of the darkest chapters in the history of Jagannath Puri unfolded during the invasion of Kala Pahad. Kala Pahad was a Muslim military general under the Bengal Sultanate in 16th century. Originally a Hindu, Kala Pahad had converted and turned fiercely hostile towards temples and Hindu rituals. It's that ideology, basically that's the problem. But anyways, coming back. So he turned into a monster once he converted, and then started desecrating and destroying temples. Kala Pahad stormed into Puri with his army, and what followed was an extreme act of desecration. The Jagannath Murti was forcefully removed, dragged out of the sanctum and set ablaze. He burnt the Jagannath Puri statue and tried to shatter its sanctity. The temple also had a lot of destruction, not just with Kala Pahad, but at least there are 3 to 4 waves of Islamic destructions that were inflicted upon Puri. But the story doesn't end there. It's not a story of destruction. The Madala Panji records in precise and solemn tone that before Kala Pahad could reach the Brahma Padartha, the temple servitors, who are the Daitapatis, acted with incredible urgency and devotion, and in complete secrecy, they removed the Brahma Padartham from the idol and fled into the forest, hiding it in remote locations far from enemy lands. There it remained protected, guarded and preserved until it was safe to return. This was the last time that Brahma Padartham was handled out in public some 450 to 500 years back during the Islamic invasions. So when you see these boards or signboards in Jagannath Puri saying that foreigners are not allowed, I hope now you can understand the justification. That does not mean that everybody who is a Hindu or a Bharatiya will have positive intentions, but we had a very rough and dirty past and experiences with particular ideological people. Hence those signboards that you see even today that foreigners are not allowed into Puri. I don't find any fault with that. It is perfectly fine. It's not a picnic spot. It is only meant for practicing Hindus, not even Hindus, only for practicing Hindus, irrespective of caste, whatever. But this is a very heart-wrenching story, but the main thing is Brahma Padartham was protected even during such kind of extreme nightmarish situations back then. So Brahma Padartham is definitely not the biological heart of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, but naturally all of us have that curiosity as to what it is. People give their own explanations that could be some sort of a Nrsimha Saligramam or I don't know what. There are a lot of conspiracy theories around it. It could be anybody's guess, but taking it a bit more practically and what it could possibly be, taking a balanced approach, this is what my personal view. Now, I could be completely wrong, but this is my personal view. Whenever there is a pratishtha of a murti happens, according to the Shastras, there is always a yantra, which is a copper plate inscribed with some mantras and some triangles and circles. It's called as a yantra. Hope you have seen that. Take a look at this murti of Hanuman, which was consecrated in my village. The leftmost part is when the puja is being performed before the pratishtha. And at the feet of Hanuman, you see two copper plates. They are called as yantras. And whenever the yantra pratishtha or prana pratishtha happens for any devata murti, this yantra need to be laid at the foundation of that murti, and on top of this yantra, the murti would be consecrated. Now, this has been the tradition. Any temple you will find this copper plate at the base of the murti. Now, if the murti is fixed and would never be changed, then it obviously makes sense to have this yantra permanently laid at or under the murti. But in Jagannath Puri, that's not the case. Every 12 years, the murti changes. So there need to be a place where such kind of a yantra need to be consecrated under the murti or inside the murti. And that happens to be Brahma Padartha. Now it is of a lot of spiritual and cultural and devotional value. It may not be of some glowing diamond or something of that sort. It has its own level of reverence and spiritual depth to it. But that could be the Brahma Padartha. We don't know. I could be wrong. But as a tradition, if you look at it, without a yantra, there will never be a murti, period. So there should always be a yantra associated with the murti, and following that logic, Brahma Padartham could possibly be some sort of a yantra, which is of spiritual and devotional value, and not some sort of glowing red diamond or the beating heart of Bhagwan Sri Krishna, etc. etc. Now to conclude this video, also to be very clear, the reason I chose to make this short video is not to debunk or expose or dismiss anything. That's not the point. Lately there has been a growing fascination, not bhakti but fascination, around Jagannath Puri. Videos and posts go viral talking about how the flag flies against the wind or how Krishna's heart beats inside the deity. These magical narratives capture attention, but they risk overshadowing something far more profound. We are talking about a sacred tradition where millions gather for Rath Yatra, transcending caste, creed and gender. We were talking about the legacy of Neelamadhava, a tribal form of Vishnu that predates Bhagwan Sri Krishna, which eventually gave birth to this living Moksha Puri. For countless families in Odisha, Jagannath is not just a god, he is part of the family. He is a family member, or rather the head of the family, if I might add. The level of devotion, that rooted love for the divine, must be the foundation, not just viral theories or miracle chasing. Think of the hardship. Centuries of invasion, the temple burned, idols reduced to ashes. Kala Pahad tried to destroy the very idea of Jagannath, but the faith didn't just survive, it grew stronger. It stood upon every single time it was pushed down. That resilience, that is dharma. So let's not stop at marveling at the temple. Let's go deeper. Let's hold on to the essence of Jagannath, not for his miracles, but for moksha. That's my perspective. You may have yours, which I respect completely. But this is what I believe needs to be carried forward. The resilience for dharma. And as always, thanks for watching. Jai Jagannath.